Space movies, I'm over. I'm completely over space movies.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking their helmets off. Things aren't floating. They're landing when they jump. Like I can't even.
It's too much.
It's too much because that's a law of physics that we're breaking now.
They break the laws.
And I understand, like, take your liberties with the aliens because we don't know what they look like, but we know that if you go into space, you can't breathe without a helmet.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we just kissing on the moon now? Like, you know what I mean? Why are we falling in love on the moon?
There's movies that do take the accuracies of space into account, but I also think like they're not perfect because there's only so much you can know about.
Star Wars, dude.
I'm not even talking about Star Wars. I'm talking about like there's a movie called Gravity where a woman, I think she's in a satellite or something, and there's a malfunction and she gets caught in the middle of space and she has to find her way back into the shuttle.
There's no fucking way she would ever find her way back into the shuttle.
I forgot how she does it too.
No, she doesn't. There's no way, because in space, if you don't touch anything, you are in constant inertia. You are in constant motion.
So she has to find a way to get the inertia in her favor. So that way she could float back to the space shuttle. You know that movie with Bruce Willis where they have to land on the meteor and put a nuclear bomb on it?
That's one of the greatest movies of all time.
You like that movie. Why?
That's maybe my favorite movie of all time.
Why?
The one where he's had the animal cracker on her stomach?
Yes.
Going over the hill. That's one of the finest films of all time.
Why you like that and Independence Day, which are 2 movies that defy the laws of physics, but why are you okay with them?
I don't know. I think because I watched them so young that I didn't...
You have a nostalgia for them?
Yeah, because I watched them with my dad. That's my dad's favorite movie of all time.
Independence Day or Armageddon?
Armageddon. Yeah. And it's just so... The character development is so good. You got the guy from Green Mile, and he's like... He's this big black dude, but he's like emotional. And I mean, that's probably a trope now. And then...
Yes.
And then you have the little guy...
They're all tropes.
Oh.
Through tropes. But...
Well, it was one of the first movies I ever saw.
Yeah.
That my dad introduced me to, so it holds a special place in my heart. And as one of the first real movies I saw that wasn't like an animation, I took it very seriously. I was like, oh, this is the blueprint. Like Friends, the show Friends. Yeah. Living in New York City is not inherently funny. Mm-hmm. Or Seinfeld. Like, yeah, if like 3 random people if you followed around New Yorker, your life wouldn't be funny, but it's the interrelationship.
It's characters first, always.
Exactly. Oh, really? Because you can't make a movie about New York anymore. Yes. And I'm biased. I'm a New Yorker.
No one cares about you getting a hot dog at the hot dog stand.
Exactly.
We do that.
Yeah. But I feel like at one point, movies about just New York and was a thing. You could have put Seinfeld in like Minnesota, and it probably would have been fine.
It would have been different.
It would have been different, but it would have been fine. Mm-hmm. You could put Friends in. What was it? Brooklyn? You could put them in the Bronx.
Manhattan, yeah.
Or the Queen. Well,
Bronx Friends.
It's not. That's
5 white people in the Bronx. I would love to watch that.
That would be funny. Ross in the Bronx. You get jumped.
You know, most horror movies are also metaphors for certain things. You know why the knife is considered a very popular horror movie tool? Because of sex.
It's a sharp. Oh.
Because of sex. Penetration.
Oh, God.
Yes. But they use the knife. So that's why a lot of movies in like the Friday the 13th Jason mask guy, they'll kill people who are having sex. The knife is penetration. It's almost like a death of innocence or something like that.
That's sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's twisted.
Yeah, it's super twisted.
That's nasty.
It's nasty, yeah.
But that's like fundamentally wrong, though.
They did The Invisible Man recently. They remade it.
Ooh, I didn't see the first one. Who's the Invisible Man?
You ever see the guy with bandages on his face? He's not a burn victim. He's invisible.
No, what guy with... You just saw the most generic, like... Bandage. You know, the guy with bandages on his face, like...
You know, Frankenstein and Dracula...
Any man could just...
Frankenstein and Dracula, those movies, right? They made one called The Invisible Man. Where the whole point of the movie is he's a scientist and he makes himself invisible.
Oh.
But they remade the movie recently.
Whoa, hold on. Why would he wear clothes if he's invisible?
He wears clothes so that way people could see him. He wears like bandages and glasses on.
But you're what?
It's stupid. No, it's stupid.
Oh, it's a comedy.
No, I think it's supposed to be a horror movie.
Oh, those are the worst.
It's just a gimmick.
Okay, go on.
They remade The Invisible Man recently, but they framed it differently.
Okay.
They framed it in the idea of like this woman is in an abusive relationship.
Oh no, that's a serious thing.
It's a serious thing, but they used the Invisible Man as a metaphor for gaslighting.
That's powerful.
It's super powerful. Very well made movie, and it was very well acted.
Was it horror?
It was a little. There was like some jump scares in it a little bit.
I mean, I've seen short films about domestic violence that are scarier than probably 80% of horror films out there.
Because it's real.
Yeah. Like,
The Pursuit of Happiness is scarier than most movies that we watched.
it was like a 30-minute film I watched. It was like an awareness thing. It was so... like you said, the reality is scarier than any
I'm not
monster.
afraid of T-Rexes.
Right. The man is scarier than any... He's scarier than Pyramid Head, bro. The emotion in his voice, the control. There's a point where she tries to run and you see this close-up shot of him, his bloodshot eyes looking into her fucking soul. And like, the emotion is like... You want to look away. It's that horrifying, and there's no blood necessarily. I mean, there is at some point, and it's hard to watch. Because, and I think, like you said, it's hard to watch because in the back of my mind, I know this is happening somewhere, unfortunately.
A lot of people won't take screenplays for things that they don't resonate with. So I'm sure people who write scripts about...
Well, the actors were all involved. They were all part of...
The cliche is to write what you know. So they knew that story, and they
Right,
wanted,
it's
they
a cliche,
wanted, they
but I'm
wanted
sure
to
it
present,
works.
They needed to present that story to an audience in order to get their message out.
If you just used regular actors that didn't know, I don't think it would have hit the same.
When you're an actor, you have to be able to find an emotional connection to the character, or else you're going to do a shitty job.
Right, and that got stuck in my mind for longer than any like horror scene I've seen. Like, I've seen like parts of Jigsaw, but like this was way scary. And especially stuff like domestic violence is especially scary, I think. I've seen a lot of like documentaries about drug addiction and drug...
But that
like
stuff
that.
needs to be talked about.
It needs to be talked about, but it's...
and movies are an outlet for people to get
Yeah.
those messages out.
But like...
Even if you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but like the way that this set it up was like, just the color grade. It was dark. The house, it felt empty.
have
There's
to
no
feel it.
love.
Yep.
It felt cold. The way they used ambient silence, and the way that like there was no real lines between the couple until they started screaming, and it just went from silent to like scream, and like that. It's almost like a jump scare. Like, whoa, like okay. I watch a lot of gang documentaries, and some of those are really scary. And
Why do you watch gang documentaries? If it makes you sad.
It's just fascinating, kind of like from someone who was around it, to see other gangs.
Well, how come
they
a
operate.
movie about gangs is too much now?
Because documentaries aren't like, they're not like killing people. They're talking about it.
But documentaries do use some of the dramatization effects of movies.
They do.
With the music.
Yeah, they
the
definitely
visuals
do.
they
But
use.
there's not.
You feel like it's because you're learning?
It's one thing to watch a gangster film or a gang film and they're killing everyone and they're dancing on graves and shit like that.
Yeah.
They're breaking the law.
Scarface.
Right. They're putting their nose in a pile of coke. It's another thing
There's a
for the
tiger.
guy to have his face blurred and be like, I'm doing this for my family, and it sucks. And you get to know them, and they're able to emote and talk about real shit. That's the truth. He's speaking his truth. Whereas Scarface is speaking lines, and he's showing the worst.
And that's not the part that you're interested in.
Right, I'm
You're
interested in the
interested in
characters. Yeah.
And you don't find Scarface as an interesting character. He's just like...
He's fake. He's a fake gangster. Like,
Do you like musicals?
some of them are a little too emotional for me.
There's a movie that came out recently called Rocket Man with Elton John. It's about Elton John, but Elton John had a say in like how he wanted
That's
the movie.
dope. Well, I feel like if you're doing a movie about someone who's still alive, the least you could do is, I don't know,
Get them
talk to
involved.
Yeah, they'll probably
They say the
make
problem with
make it a better movie.
They say the problem with that sometimes is the Queen movie that came out. It was written by the people who were in Queen, but they made themselves look great in that movie.
Right,
But
and the
Freddie
problem with the Bruce
Freddie-
Lee movie is that the guy didn't really do his homework on Bruce Lee.
Not the Bruce Lee movie, but the Bruce Lee scene in the Quentin Tarantino movie. I don't think Quentin Tarantino was trying to make an accurate representation of Bruce Lee. It's just unfortunate that he's a real person, and people will just watch the movie and assume that's what Bruce Lee was.
Yeah, because then Joe Budden gets on the Joe Budden podcast and says, Bruce Lee was a bitch. He was a nasty
Yeah, he
ass
just got his ass kicked by Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
No, it's just a movie. That's.
He later apologized, but still, like, you have millions of... You're the number one podcast in the world.
I don't think Quentin Tarantino makes a movie and thinks about what people are going to think about Bruce Lee. He just wants
But I have a problem when movies
to misrepresent people.
misrepresent people that are already misrepresented. It's the same reason why racism towards white people is not the same as racism towards minorities.
Yeah.
Because one is in power,
Yes.
so you can make fun of them. You can make fun of white people, but...
They still benefit from society.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you make fun of a minority, you're pretty much just kicking them while they're down. because we've been down. The score's not even.
Yeah.
So when you have someone who's held in such high esteem, and you're a famous director for an American audience, and maybe American audiences don't know about Bruce Lee, who was one of my heroes growing up, and Bruce Lee means so much to the culture that he was birthed from, you should take some...
That into context.
Yeah, you should be careful how you portray him.
Yeah.
And do him justice.
That's fair.
And realize that, sure, maybe it's just a scene, but, what's the harm in me doing right by him?
Yeah.
Instead of portraying him falsely. I think Quentin Tarantino knows that, and I think he just chose not to. He just doesn't care. Because, like I said, racism again, I'm not racist. I have movies where the black man is the most powerful guy in the film. Yeah, but you can
still not be racist and do racist things.
Right. And, like I said, and before when we talked, like, what's cool right now? What's the racism that we're worried about against black people? That doesn't mean you can just be racist against other races. Slide it on the rug. And that was my problem with, from what I heard. I didn't watch the scene or the movie or whatever, because I just don't...
It's a scene where the actor who plays Bruce Lee and Brad Pitt get into a fight, and it ends up being even. And I think the whole point of the scene was just to make the character of Brad Pitt look a little bit more capable.
Right, and let's not use the Asian guy playing Bruce Lee as the height
expense.
Yeah. Right.
If someone holds their own against Bruce Lee, then they'll be seen as more imposing throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah, but I think, first of all, I wouldn't put anyone in that Bruce Lee position, whether they're white, Asian, because you're literally just there to bolster someone else.
Yeah.
So there are other ways.
He was at their job, basically. Yeah.
There are other ways to do that.
Yeah. Well, when you put the context into account, it just doesn't seem very self-aware.
Yeah.
Talking about the Elton John movie that he was involved in, it's a musical, but it dramatizes the entire movie. And Elton John said, "I didn't want my movie to be historically accurate to what I've gone through. I just wanted the feelings." So they take the songs from Elton John's catalog and they put them within the context of.
That's a liberty you take with a man who's also a musical artist.
And they frame it as a
Bruce Lee, you can't capture the feeling. He was a person, and he lived what he did. He lived how he, what he wrote. He lived the things he spoke. With Elton John, though, there's a difference between the man and the feeling his music has. So you can do that. You can separate that, the music and the artist.
Yeah.
But that's dope, though.
At least with music stars of today, they have the rights to their story. So they couldn't make the Queen movie without getting Queen to sign off. And that ended up not being to their benefit, unfortunately, because it kind of made Freddie Mercury look bad. But Elton John got a say in his movie, and it ended up working out well because he understood how he wanted to frame his story. And he was sitting on it for such a long time. I think he said he was waiting almost 20 years to make the movie.
That's kind of wild, but I know what he means because,
he wanted to be done
eventually
right.
I do want to do a book.
Yeah.
So, if I'm 40 and I put out a book, I've been sitting on this for 20 years, technically, yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, I think the extra time to reflect.
Yeah.
And put things into context.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think movies are a great outlet. I'd love to... My thing about the trial and error movies, it's too long of a... I'm halfway through a song...
We always tap out.
It's still a time commitment, though. But I do want to watch them with you, because,
I wouldn't just recommend you a movie and have you watch it. I would recommend that
I don't even own Netflix.
When we watched Jurassic Park, I'm able to pause the movie and you ask me a question, I'm like, oh, because of this. And it's able to kind of get you back into the movie.
Right.
Because I know why they did it. I know the intentions behind...
Yeah, and if I can accept that from you, then okay, I'll immerse myself back in. Because if I'm alone, I probably would have turned it off at the point where they stopped for that dying dinosaur. No, you people, they picked... These people are incapable of learning.
Also, all the trauma they've inflicted on themselves.
Yeah, there's no signs of trauma. That's the weird thing. Trauma creates neural pathways that when an action happens, a synapse goes off that travels through that same neural pathway and says, I won't do that again. If I touch the hot stove and it burns me, I'm in pain, I'm not going to do it again. They didn't learn that at any point in the movie, really, until the very end.
Sometimes change can be a process, and people don't change right away. But for this situation, I agree.
Right.
But there are movies where sometimes the character is making the same mistake over and over and over again. Maybe they don't realize
part of their character.
They don't realize they're making that mistake until the very end, where something triggers that oh shit.
Right, but
moment.
this was far too.
I think in Jurassic Park that doesn't apply, but I do think that they use that method of, oh, they don't learn anything until
And I
the
think
end.
they're just such good actors that they made it convincing anyway. Because if they were bad actors and they were like, oh, I'm gonna go outside the car
Yeah.
now, like, no, I don't believe you.
Yeah, but when they get out the car, you believe that those
Yeah, they're
characters.
really that stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.